Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, lovers and seekers, those who are lost, and those who are found. Tonight, we will be discussing another fragment. This one sports a headline that reads, "For somebody for anybody but." The body of this fragment reads as follows. Sometimes we wait for somebody, sometimes we wait for anybody, but ourselves. And that it, the whole thing, for somebody for anybody but. Sometimes we wait for somebody, sometimes we wait for anybody, but ourselves. That being said, let's get started, shall we? For somebody for anybody but. A particular voice, a specific presence, a person whose shape fits the outline already drawn in the mind. Somebody carries intention. It carries preference. It carries the dignity of choice. Waiting for somebody means there is a standard. There is a name, even if it is not spoken. There is an image that has not yet been compromised. Time passes, silence stretches, and the waiting posture grows heavy. Then something shifts. Sometimes we wait for anybody. The standard softens. The outline blurs. The specific becomes general. Relief replaces preference. The question is no longer, who belongs here? It becomes, who will fill the space? Anybody will do. Anybody is easier than nobody. Anybody quiets the room. Anybody stops the ache. But that shift costs something. The movement from somebody to anybody is not growth. It is erosion. It is what happens when endurance outruns conviction, when loneliness edits standards, when silence begins to distort self-worth. And then, but, the word that interrupts surrender, for somebody, for anybody, but, not that, not under those terms, not at that price. The but is where dignity returns. It is the hinge between desperation and discernment. Without it, the progression is predictable. Hope collapses into compromise. Specificity dissolves into vacancy. Somebody degrades into anybody. The but refuses that slide. It does not always speak loudly. Often it arrives as tension in the body, a tightening in the chest, a quiet recognition that something is about to be accepted that should not be. For somebody, for anybody, but not like this. That unfinished phrase contains a boundary. It is not necessarily pride. It is not necessarily fear. It is resistance to self-abandonment. There is a moment in many lives where the need to be met becomes stronger than the desire to be aligned. That is when anybody becomes tempting. That is when the empty chair feels heavier than misfit company. But if the but appears, if it interrupts the descent, something inside has not eroded completely. The but is self-preservation. It is the line that says, connection is desired, but not at the cost of coherence. Presence is wanted, but not at the cost of integrity. The most dangerous waiting is not for somebody or anybody. It is waiting long enough that the but disappears. Because once the but is gone, anything fits. And when anything fits, nothing truly belongs. There is a loneliness that refines. There is another loneliness that corrodes. The difference is whether the but survives. For somebody, for anybody, but the unfinished sentence matters because it leaves space for refusal without declaring hostility. It does not name the unacceptable thing. It simply denies it entry. Sometimes that denial is directed outward. Not that person, not that opportunity, not that compromise. Sometimes it is directed inward. Not that version of self, not that shrinking, not that lowering of the bar. The fragment does not resolve the sentence because resolution would weaken it. The power is in the restraint, the refusal to finish, the willingness to let tension remain. Hope is not naive. Desperation is not inevitable, and refusal is not cruelty. For somebody, for anybody, but that final word is the quiet recovery of agency. It says, waiting may bend, but it will not collapse. It says, presence is desired, but not purchased with self-erasure. It says, something is off limits. And sometimes the strongest move is not choosing between somebody and anybody, but knowing where to place the but.